There's a lot of debate online as to when you are required to give your name and address and maybe even your date of birth to a police officer. So hopefully I can clear up some of that confusion now in this video. So to put it simply, there is a very thin line between situations when you are required or not required to provide your name and address to a police officer. One doesn't have any consequences at all, one of which you can be arrested and charged for. So it's important to know the difference. But just as a caveat to all of this, of course, my videos cannot be taken as formal legal advice because I'm not sitting down with you talking about your specific circumstances, but this is the general position. So first of all, it's important to know that police officers may or may not be in uniform, although a PCSO, which is a police community support officer, should always be in uniform. And if a police constable is not in uniform, then they should always be carrying their warrant card. In addition, if a police officer is not in uniform, then ideally, and under the current guidelines, they should immediately be summoning someone else who is in uniform if they've stopped to question you, or very much if they have detained you. And in any event, when you are stopped and questioned by the police, you should always feel free to ask questions. And I would encourage you to ask searching questions, particularly if it's a single officer. Where are your colleagues? What station are you at? What is your name and your collar number? Why are you stopping me? Why are you interested in what I'm doing? And so on. Now to the questions that the police officer may ask you. They may well ask you who you are, where you're going, where you've been, what you're doing, what you have been doing, who you've been with, what you're carrying, all these kind of questions they may well ask, in addition to your name and address. So coming back to that thin line between situations where you do or do not have to answer these questions is as follows. The ordinary situation, when you've done nothing wrong and you are not suspected of having done anything wrong or being involved in anything wrong at all, the simple answer is you do not have to answer these questions. You don't have to give your name and address. You don't have to say where you're going, where you've been, what you've been doing, what you're going to do, who you've been with, what you're carrying, and so on. However, the important caveat to this is, as I say, a very thin line which crosses over to a very different type of situation, which doesn't take very much to cross that line, although that might give rise to a complaint. So I will flag up at this stage that I do have a collaboration with Claim Experts, which I will come back to in a short while. So the important caveat is this: if the officer suspects you of being involved in any kind of antisocial behaviour or any other offence, then you do need to provide your name and address. And failure to provide those details is a further offence for which you may be arrested and perhaps even charged, along with the original offence if that's also prosecuted. It's very important to bear in mind as well that giving false details can be even more serious, because not only is this failing to provide your details, but it could amount to the obstruction of justice, because if the police officer is trying to establish who you are as to whether you've been involved in an offence and you give false details, then it may well be interfering with the police duties and you may be prosecuted for a further offence as well. The police officer may also ask you for your date of birth, particularly if there is any doubt as to your identity, and it would be unreasonable to refuse this if indeed the officer has suspected you of being involved in an offence and you're refusing to provide such details. You must also remain in place if the officer has asked you to. You should ask whether you're being detained, and if you're being detained and if you are being asked for these details because of one of these offences, the police officer should be giving you the general nature of the offence that they suspect you of being involved with or having committed or about to commit, and they can use reasonable force to keep you in that position if you try to escape. They may arrest you if necessary. If it later transpires that all of this was absolutely unreasonable, unnecessary, and they use force on you, perhaps even unreasonable force on you, you may well have a very valid grounds for complaint. And this is where my collaboration with Claim Experts comes in, the link for which I will put on screen now. Claim Experts work with a panel of lawyers that can assess whether or not you have a potential claim against the police for compensation. Because if you've been detained and arrested and force has been used upon you, which is later determined to be unreasonable, then this might amount to assault and you might be due compensation. The link for Claim Experts is also in the description below. Your details do not come to me, they go directly to Claim Experts, and they will not charge you to assess whether you've got a claim or not, and they will not charge you to progress a claim if they think you do. But for now, on with the video. When it comes to searches, the police might also search you, and this might be in a number of different situations once again. First of all, they may have a search warrant, but otherwise they must have reasonable grounds to suspect that either you've been involved in an offence, or you're going to commit an offence, or that you may be a danger to yourself or others, or you're on school grounds and it's suspicious, or something like that. For more information on your full rights if you are being searched, I have yet another video which I will also link in the description below, so make sure you go ahead and watch that one after this one. Now, all of the contents of this video so far should not be confused with the right to silence, which is a slightly different concept in and of itself. Of course, if you are being questioned without being under caution, you don't have to answer those questions, aside from your name and address, as I've just outlined. But even if you are being questioned under caution, not only do you have the right to free legal advice and to examine PACE codes and so on, but once again, you have no obligation to answer questions. But this is where the police caution comes in, because the police caution provides that you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defense if you do not mention when questioned something that you later rely on in court. This is referring to an adverse inference, where a jury or a magistrate might draw an adverse inference from your failure to answer those questions when given a reasonable opportunity or at the earliest opportunity. Similar questions arise from representing yourself in court, which is another video that I'm going to do very shortly, so make sure you subscribe to receive that video, because this is going to be an interesting video as to whether or not you can represent yourself in a Crown Court trial. If you found that interesting, please make sure you subscribe, and thanks for watching.